Scala has a unified type system, and this means that Scala has an absolute plethora of different empty values. Emptiness in Scala is a rather complex topic because there are so many forms of it. Let's go ahead and explore all of these different forms of emptiness in Scala. We should know the difference between null and null with a capital N versus a little n. We should know what nothing, nil, none, and unit are. So let's go ahead and cycle through all of these terms one by one. Let's start with null with a lowercase n. This is basically the same as null in Java. You can use this as a value. Again, this is a value. You can use this as a special value, although there is a preferable way to null testing. This has to do with option collections more later. Reference types can be null, but value types cannot. If you try and assign the value of null lowercase n to an integer, an error results. Scala has a more type-safe way of testing for nothingness. This is known as an option collection. We'll get to this in due course. Next up, let's talk about null with a capital N. Null with a capital N is a type. It's a trait which you can think of loosely as a Scala interface. This means that null with a capital N is not a value, it's a type. Specifically, it's the type of null with lowercase n. We've briefly encountered null before this when we were talking about Scala's type system. We had mentioned how nothingness in the reference type world is signified by null with a capital N. Again, null with a capital N is a type, null with a little n is a value. Next up, let's talk about nothing. Nothing is also a type, i.e. a trait. Nothing is not a value. Nothing is a type. It's a trait. You can loosely think of a trait as being a Scala interface. When you create a collection such as a list and it's empty, the type of that list is going to be a list of nothing. Nothing types can never be instantiated. Again, you can never instantiate nothing, but nothing extends everything. I love this statement. Again, nothing extends everything. The point of this is that nothing is a subtype both of any val and of any ref. Unlike null, which was a subtype only of any ref, nothing is a subtype of both any val and any ref. Nothing is a type, again, just like null with a capital L. Next up is nil. Nil is a special value associated with the list class. Because the list class, the list collection is so important in Scala, we will return to nil later on in this course. Nil is actually a singleton object of the type list of nothing. Don't worry if this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Basically, just remember this. Lists are internally represented as linked lists, singly linked lists. And nil is a special value which is used to signify the end of the list. Because of the importance of the list class in Scala, the nil value is also pretty important. Remember that nil is a singleton, it is of type list of nothing. Next up is none. None is a special value associated with something known as an option collection. An option is a type-safe way in Scala to indicate that a value may or may not be present. Consider, for instance, a function which takes in two numbers, a numerator and a denominator, and returns a fraction. To guard against the possibility that the denominator is 0, we specify that the type, the return value, is option of double. Now, if the denominator that was passed in was 0, we return the special value none. And if the denominator was not 0, then we go ahead and return an option of the numerator divided by the denominator. We'll have more to say on options later on in the course, but you should be aware that they are a type-safe way to test for the absence of a value. In this way, they are more safe. They make for more safe code than using null and testing for a value to be equal to null. And last up, but worth talking about all the same, is the keyword unit. Unit is actually pretty simple to understand. Unit is basically the same as void in Java. If you have a function which does not have a return type, which doesn't return anything, well then you mark the return type of that function as being unit. Here's an example on screen. Here is a function which just prints a value to screen. It doesn't return anything. And Scala knows, it indicates that its type is, return type is unit. That gets us to the end of our very quick run through of these special types which are used to signify emptiness in Scala. There are a whole bunch of them, but each one of them exists for a sound reason. So I hope you understand what these types are and why they exist.